All right, back to YouTube. Looked at my library, and the last video I posted publicly was June 28th, 2021. So, what better way to come back than with a video about teaching? Hey everybody, how's it going? It's your boy TJJE back with another one. Oh my gosh, yeah, I know it's been a while. There's many things to say, but I think for this one, I gotta focus on an assignment I recently got in my grad class. Yes, I'm taking a grad class right now. I realized that as I'm applying to more schools in the international level, a lot of them require me to have a degree in secondary education, which is why I'm going to one in University of Alabama to get that degree in secondary education. And so in my class, we had this question about guided inquiry. And so, yeah, this video is just going to be talking about guided inquiry, a little bit about what it is, what it means to me, and some of the examples that have happened in my couple of years of teaching. Did I say couple of years? Couple of years. It's like 11 years, bro. Okay. So, anyways, let's get into it. When I think of guided inquiry to me is a learning strategy where teachers facilitate learning by providing the necessary skills to answer a driving question. Okay, that's what it looks like in my science class. I typically teach them a skill, and then they're going to go out and use it in some form or setting. You typically guided by me. I'll be there to facilitate, help them along the way, but I'm not really trying to give them the answer. And we come to it together as a class, okay? So that's kind of what guided inquiry is to me. However, when we were taking this class, I realized that there's a lot of information that's really tied in, right? There's a lot of steps that tie into guided inquiry. And so in my assignment last week, I was really intrigued because I saw this thing called the four-step approach. Okay, so this four-step approach to guided inquiry was really intriguing, and I could really relate to it in terms of the teaching that I've been doing. So with that, let's kind of jump into what is this four-step approach. And I mean, in all honesty, it drew me in because I love visuals. And if you know me, I love visual things. It's really happening for me. So let's talk about these steps. And one of the first steps of the four-step approach is what's called structured inquiry. Okay, if you see that guy in the pool, he's with the students, they're all doing it together. And it's just like that in the classroom. You have this teacher-led instruction. They have a very clear expectation. They have a very clear outcome, and everyone's probably going to have the same outcome. Okay? And that's really great because, typically if you're trying to teach a skill or you want to start with a different process, in the beginning of the year, or maybe some other things that sprinkle out through the other parts of the year, you need to teach them right away. And that's where that structured inquiry really comes in handy. For instance, when we were first teaching about claim evidence reasoning, a lot of the times we work on that together. We as a class will work and create a claim together and get the evidence together, and then we work on our reasoning together. So yeah, that's kind of what structured inquiry is about. Then the next level would be what's called controlled inquiry, where the teacher develops these topics, they develop these questions, and then students are given the resources and given the ability to answer them. So here, now it's starting to get a little more student-centered in the idea that you're giving them a little bit more freedom to go and research and to go off into another space to go find those answers. And it doesn't necessarily come from the teacher. Okay, you can come back together, everyone can share out, and then they can kind of talk about that. So I like to think about this in my classroom. We recently had this Google Doc or Google Sheet that we made for the students where they were supposed to find all these different planets and all these different information about the planets and other celestial objects in our solar system, and we gave them all these resources. So it was still freedom for them to go and find the information. However, it was very clear what the expected outcome was. We shared our data to make sure that everything lined up and that they had a very clear understanding of all the different expectations we have for each of the different columns. All right, so Next one is like my favorite part, which is the guided inquiry, where teachers choose topics, we create driving questions, and then students are on their own to either research it, to experiment on it, or to create something. But it's based on a very clear expectation, like typically with a rubric, that we have a final product or final result that needs to be found. And so this is pretty much where a lot of our claim evidence reasonings go after they learn how to use claim evidence reasoning. So for instance, we kind of worked on the first one together, but as we get down the road, like I know we have one coming up about Pangea and stuff. And so with Pangea, they have to kind of research on their own and then come up with their own steps. And we only give them that driving question. So hopefully you can kind of see where that goes. And then finally, the last one, which is free inquiry. And so free inquiry is a really interesting one because in this point, like the students choose the topics and they don't have any specific outcomes, but they will have outcomes, that are gathered from their research, it's gathered from their experiments, it's gathered from their prototypes. There's just lots of different ways to approach it. And for me, like when I think back to my teaching, I think back on my time with Pilot City and working with my students and working in a work-based experience where students were able to choose different employers. And then with these different employers, they were given design challenges and they had to go and create something like an actual product for that company. And if they were really successful, they were able to intern with those companies. So it was a really awesome program and I really loved it. And it was like a really cool way of doing this free inquiry because the students were this is where it goes like from teacher-centered all the way to student-centered. And it's just this amazing kind of project where they're able to kind of think and do things on their own. Like I like to think of like Google 20 time projects. If you've ever heard of that before, Google 20 time projects is when students work on a personal project for 20% of the class. Is something I tried out one year, which was also really cool. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do free inquiry. So yeah, I hope that kind of gave you some cool insight. I'm gonna try to drop some links below just to kind of give you some examples of what each of these different levels look like. And yeah, I also want to really pull this up too because I thought this was really cool, but there was something called the guided inquiry process. And in the guided inquiry process, like from the Michigan Sea Grant, they actually released this worksheet that you can fill out called a guided inquiry map. And so if you're really new to guided inquiry, and like especially for this one because it's more web-based and something I want to have more structure for in my research when I have my students researching, is definitely something I want to use. Yeah, check it out because I think it's a really cool worksheet and something you can even expand on and make it into like a multi-lesson thing. So I can give some ideas about that as well in the description below. Well, anyways, thanks so much for listening. Take care, y'all. Have a good one. See you in the next one. Stay classy.